Hello everyone, Monty here. Today I'm going to show you how to make butternut squash soup. So I made pumpkin soup for my mom and Marva a couple weeks ago. They really loved it, so I thought tonight, every Sunday, I make dinner for Mom and Marva. I would show you guys how to make some butternut squash soup. I'm always trying to make different things for them. I don't want to make the same thing over and over again, so I challenge myself to make things differently. Tonight we're having a tomato and buffalo mozzarella appetizer drizzled with a little balsamic reduction and fresh chopped basil. I had it in a restaurant once and I loved it. Very healthy, low carb. And then for the next course, we're gonna have butternut squash soup. And I'm gonna go out and get some, maybe some pumpkin seeds or something to put, I don't know, something to maybe to put on top. I'm thinking about it right now. And then for the main course, we're having spaghetti squash and tomato sauce with sauteed onion and spinach. That's one of my mother's and Marva's favorites. But to mix it up a little bit, I'm putting 3 little lollipop lamb chops on top. And I'll show you guys. I've never made it before. I YouTubed it and looked at all recipes online, found a constant theme across all recipes, and I'm gonna try pan searing them tonight, and then maybe next time I'll bake them in the oven. But anyway, back to the butternut squash. When I make soup, whether it be pumpkin soup or butternut squash soup, or even like a vegetable soup, I start with sauteing fresh garlic that I chop up, and like a half to 3/4 of a medium onion, and then I add a little olive oil, and I'm very calorie conscious though, so and low carb, which olive oil is all fat. It's not really, there's no carbs. But even though if I use 4 tablespoons of olive oil, which is a lot of calories, it's spread across many bowls of soup, so it's not really gonna be that much. So first thing we need to do is we need to cut the butternut squash and then take the seeds out. I wash everything when I come back from the supermarket with soap and water, so it's already been washed. It has the label on it, I don't care because I'm cutting the skin off. A lot of people have a hard time. You need a good knife. They got a hard time cutting squash, especially women to have the arm strength. It's hard for me sometimes. You'll see I'll struggle with it. But call me crazy. I know if I microwave it for 3 to 5 minutes, it would be easier, but I never do that, right? I just use the strength and cut it. So if you have problems cutting spaghetti squash, which I just made, which is cooling for the week, and that's gonna be prepped for not only tonight's dinner, but for the rest of the week, I'll have some left over and I'll give my mom some. But if it's too hard for you to cut, especially spaghetti squash, which was very hard for me to cut, put it in the microwave for like 3 to 5 minutes, probably closer to 5 minutes, and then it's easy to cut. So what I do is I just try to, whoa, I almost made a mistake. Normally I would be cutting this in half if I was doing the spaghetti squash, but I find it's easier to skin it if you leave it whole. So what I do is I just chop off the 2 ends, and be careful when you're doing this. I think there's another knife that's gonna be easier to skin it, my purple knife. So, and then I just go down like this. And I know so many people are gonna tell me such a better way to do this. I'm sure there's a better way, but this is how I do it. And this takes probably the most time to make this soup, is to skin it. And here we go. And I'm just gonna get the rest of this off. Anything you see left on it, okay? Now you can see the end here is where all the seeds are. I'm gonna take all this and throw it away. Then I'm gonna take my spoon and I'm gonna cut all this off that I know where the seeds are gonna be. And I'll just scoop that out with a spoon. Get all the seeds out. Make sure I get all of them. Okay, that looks like I got them all. And maybe there's a couple of stragglers here. Okay. Oops, I'm making a mess here. And then I just start chopping it, right? Now you're gonna put this through the blender later. Like I'm gonna cook this down with some chicken stock. And then, ooh, I made a big mess here today. So just start chopping it up. Remember, I'm doing 3 of these. Okay. This is, I mean, I live in Florida and it's hot, and I love soup. It's still hot as hell here, so I wish it would cool off already, but it hasn't. But those of you who live in cold temperatures, it's really a great soup to make, and it's so delicious. And depending on, the squash, because some squash, the same butternut squash, are really sweet. Depends how ripe it is. You'll see how much seasoning you need. Sometimes if it's really sweet, I just put sea salt. It already has the garlic and onion that we're gonna put in. I chopped up, again, the garlic, about 6 big cloves. I like it really garlicky. About 3/4 of a medium onion. And then once I start chopping all this up, I'll put this all in a bowl. So I just chop it up into cubes because it's gonna cook down, and then we're gonna put it through the blender when it's all cooked to get a really smooth consistency. And okay. Anyway, so this is how easy this is like the most part of making the soup is chopping up all this butternut squash. And then what we're gonna do is once it's all chopped, I'm gonna take you over to the range. We're going to add in the olive oil. We're gonna heat the soup pot. Then once it's nice and hot, we're gonna medium to medium high flame. We're then going to put in the butternut squash, pour on top of it some chicken stock. And you'll learn after you make it a couple of times how much chicken stock you need, so it won't be too, because you want it to be very thick soup. You just want to cover the chicken stock with it, and when it boils down, it'll boil out most of the liquid. And I just hurt my finger. Anyway, so and then you'll add, depending on what it tastes like, then you'll take it out. I'm sorry. Then after you cook it down and all the butternut squash is really cooked and really mushy, like mashed potatoes, you can mash it with a fork. Then you'll let it take it off the flame. You let it cool. You'll put it into a blender. You'll blend it, and then you put it back on the pot, and that's when you do your seasoning. You'll add more. I'll add a little sea salt while it's cooking down, but then maybe you'll need a little bit more salt. I like to squeeze a half a lemon in there, and then maybe you would need something else. Like sometimes I'll put like thyme or maybe a little rosemary. You determine what you need after that, but it could be fine just with the little bit of lemon and the sea salt and the butternut squash and the garlic and the onion, nothing else. Maybe a little black pepper, also. But let me take you over to the stove and show you how I do that, and then we'll finish it all up. Okay guys, I got my Scott Cam here, my camera on the tripod. What I've done is I've sauteed that 6 cloves of garlic and that like 3/4 of a medium onion in the pan with about 4 tablespoons of olive oil. And now it's kind of getting brown, so now I'm gonna throw in on a medium flame. Now I'm gonna throw in all the chopped butternut squash. Now these are 3, so it's way too much. There's a lot, but I'm gonna maybe bring some to my neighbor. I'm also going to have some for Mom and Marva meat for dinner tonight, and then also leftover for the week. Then I just throw in the butternut squash, very simple. And then what I do is I like using the low sodium, I use organic too, low sodium chicken broth, because I like to put my own pink Himalayan sea salt in. Now, I think the pink does taste a little bit different. I think it tastes better, but also I read someplace that the pink has nutrients in it, and most white salt has fillers and carriers in it, and it's just got terrible stuff in there. So white salt, you can Google that yourself and read that. So what I do is I put it in just to about, I'm using a whole container and a little bit more. I want to get close to covering. This one, the hole's not open enough. You want to get enough to like cover just to about the top of the butternut squash. And then what I'll do is I'm going to put in some sea salt, but I'm going to have to probably move this camera. Now here we go. And let's see if I can find my sea salt. I wasn't prepared for you guys. I'm going to get my sea salt here. And this will probably come to a boil. And what we'll do is about 21, 22 turns of the sea salt. I'm now going to get a spoon and mix it up. It's really not ready today, guys. And I'm just going to mix this up. And I just about, if you can see, just about covered the butternut squash in the chicken stock. And then what I'm going to do is let it bring to a boil and reduce the flame. And then I'm going to cover it and let it cook at like a simmer until it's so soft you can mush it with a fork. Like really mush it easily, like disintegrate. And then we'll let it cool, and then we'll put it into a blender. We'll blend it, and then we'll put it back onto the stove, and then add more seasoning, the lemon juice, maybe some, if it needs it, maybe some thyme or something else. And anyway, so I'll turn it back on when we're ready to take it out and when it's done. Okay, so once it starts to boil, just turn the oven down a little bit and cover it. and then just keep checking it every, 10 minutes to see how it's doing. Okay guys, it's been cooking for about 20 to 30 minutes, and I can mash it with the spoon and it disintegrates, which is what you want. You can see that it looks like I can mash it like mashed potatoes. So I'm gonna turn the flame off. I'm gonna set it aside. I'm gonna let it cool for about an hour, so I can then put it into, I can put it into the blender, let it cool, and then blend it and then put it back into, I pour it all into a big bowl. I clean the pot out, and then I take everything from the bowl, I put it in the blender like, maybe 5 or 6 times because there's a lot in here. And then I put it back into the pot, add a little lemon juice and more seasoning if needed, and then the soup is done. So I'll turn the camera back on when we're ready to blend it. Okay, so I let it cool a little bit, but it's still pretty hot. So you always have to be very careful when you transfer it. I transferred the whole soup pot and I cleaned it out into a bowl. And then what I do is I take my ladle and I ladle out the cooked butternut squash. It's so soft, so tender. You want it like just to basically disintegrate. And then I fill it up. Let's see, this is gonna be a lot of soup. So I fill it up, I put it on here in my blender, and then I turn it on. I hate this thing, you've got to line up my Ninja blender, and then I just turn it on. And it's that easy. And then what I'm going to keep doing is I'm going to keep blending it, and it looks like a very creamy soup, but there's no cream at all. This is a non-dairy soup. Look how creamy that is. And actually I may need to add up some more chicken stock or water to loosen it up a little bit. And then I just pour it in, and that's it. So I'm not gonna waste the time because I'm gonna run out of time, but I do that I'll probably do about 4 or 5 times until I get all the soup in there. Then we'll put it back on the stove. We'll put a little lemon juice in it, some pepper, some sea salt, then we'll taste it and see what it tastes like, see if it needs something else. Sometimes I don't need anything. Sometimes I want a little kick to it, so I'll put crushed red pepper, but my mom doesn't like that, so I won't put that in. She doesn't like spicy, but maybe I'll put a little thyme in to give it a little extra flavor, but we'll see when we get it back on the pot. Okay guys, so I put it back onto the oven, it's on the range, excuse me, and I'm just now really not, it doesn't need to be cooked anymore. I'm just gonna heat it up a little bit just for seasoning purposes. So I did taste a little bit and it needs some more salt. So I'm gonna put some more pink Himalayan sea salt in. And I'm also gonna put the juice of like a half a lemon, a small lemon in there, just to give it a little something, and a little black pepper. And I did taste it. It tastes really sweet. Sometimes the butternut squash is sweet, sometimes it's not. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna warm this back up, and then I'll taste it again and see if it needs anything. Now, typically, most of the time I don't put anything else in. This soup would be done right now. Look how creamy this is. It looks like it's a heavy-based cream soup, and it's not. And I gotta talk fast because we're almost out of time. But if you think it needs something else, you can put a little thyme in there to get it a little extra flavor. But I just found something in there. But typically you don't need it. And just salt to taste, and also see if you think you need anything else in there, because each butternut squash tastes a little bit different. Oh my God, that is amazing. It doesn't need anything else. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. See how easy it is to make butternut squash. Non-dairy, very healthy, low calorie. I can't say enough good things about this soup, especially how healthy it is for you.